Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. It was just past midnight, and the road was quiet the way only southern back roads can be. Lonely, like the world had fallen asleep and forgotten to wake back up. I was on my way home from a wedding in Nashville. One of those half fun, half exhausting events where you drink just enough to be buzzed, but not enough to justify staying the night. I wanted my own bed. So, against better judgment, I took the old state highway that cut through rural Tennessee. It was supposed to be scenic, peaceful. But peaceful becomes eerie when you're the only car on a winding two-lane road that seems to go on forever, swallowed by thick woods pressing in for both sides. The kind of place where high beams catch nothing but endless trees and the occasional roadkill. I'd been driving for about 20 miles when I saw her, a figure standing by the shoulder, barely visible in the edge of my lights. A woman in a pale gray hoodie, thumb out, head tilted low so I couldn't see her face. She looked soaked in moonlight, though the moon wasn't out. Something about her made the air in my car go cold. I don't pick up hitchhikers. Never have. My dad used to tell me that if someone needs help on the road, you call for it. You don't invite it into your car. But something about her made my fingers ease off the wheel and onto the window button. I rolled it down a crack. "Where you headed?" She didn't lift her head, didn't even flinch. Then she whispered, soft, like a breeze blowing over a grave. "Same place as you." That should have been enough for me to drive on. But before I could respond, before I even blinked, she opened the passenger door and slid in like she belonged there. Smooth, silent. I stared at her for a second. She sat perfectly still, hands in her lap, face still hidden by the hood. My breath fogged up the windshield. I told myself maybe she was just another lost soul. Maybe she'd had a fight with someone. Maybe she needed help. We drove in silence for maybe 5 minutes. The kind of silence that hums in your ears and makes your heart beat faster for no good reason. I kept stealing glances at her. She hadn't moved, didn't look at me, just stared ahead, eyes hidden. Then, out of nowhere, she said it. "You shouldn't have left her alone that night." My foot slipped slightly off the gas. My mouth went dry. I gripped the wheel tighter. "Who?" I asked, not because I didn't understand, but because I didn't want to. She turned her head slowly toward me, like it took effort. The hood slid back a little, revealing part of her face. But it was strange, like someone trying to copy a face from memory. Not wrong exactly, but not quite right either. Like her features were drawn in pencil, smudged in places, too smooth in others. Then she said my name, my full name, the way my mother used to when I was in trouble. Stern, certain. I slammed the brakes. The tires screeched against the blacktop. The car came to a jarring stop. My head snapped forward, chest hitting the seatbelt. I looked to the side. She was gone. No door slam. No footsteps. Just gone. I jumped out, heart pounding, and checked the passenger seat. Empty. Checked the back. Empty. I even shone my phone light into the woods. Nothing. No trace of her. I stood in the middle of that quiet road for a long time, just listening to the breeze through the trees, to the blood rushing in my ears. Eventually, I got back in and drove. Didn't stop, didn't blink. When I finally pulled into my driveway, the porch light was flickering. I thought maybe the bulb was going out. It had done that before, But this time the flicker wasn't random. It was pulsing, almost rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I walked up the steps, keys in hand, hands shaking, and then I saw them. Muddy footprints, leading from the bottom of the porch right up to the front door. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the footprints continued. They went under the door. Inside, I unlocked the door slowly, like maybe it would buy me time. The air inside felt colder than the outside, and the moment I stepped in, the hallway lights buzzed once and went dead. I followed the footprints. They trailed through the living room, down the hallway, and straight into my bedroom. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I didn't want to explain it out loud. Maybe I already knew nobody would believe me. The bedroom door was ajar, just a crack. I pushed it open. Empty. The footprints stopped at the edge of my bed, and there, on my pillow, was a single strand of long, black hair. I don't live with anyone. I haven't since Melissa left. She's the one I left alone that night. 2 years ago, after a fight, I stormed out, turned off my phone, spent the night at a buddy's place. When I came back the next morning, the front door was wide open. Her purse was still on the kitchen table. Her car still in the driveway. They never found her. Sometimes I tell myself she ran away, that she just needed to escape. But sometimes, especially after nights like this, I wonder if something else found her, or if I brought her home. I slept on the couch that night, lights on, didn't close my eyes. Couldn't, because somewhere I could still hear it. The whisper, the voice I can't forget. You shouldn't have left her alone that night. And the next morning, the footprints were gone, but the pillow still had that single strand of hair, and the faint scent of lavender, the same perfume she always wore, lingered in the air. Story 2. It started like any other night. Quiet, dark, and lonely, just the way I liked it. I've worked night shifts for a private courier company for the last 5 years, mostly transporting confidential packages that no one wants to ask too many questions about. Cash deliveries, sensitive documents, sometimes things wrapped too tight to smell, if you get my drift. I don't poke, I don't peek. I just drive. That night, the job was simple. A small black box. No return address. No markings. Just a printed slip on top with the words, "Deliver by 3 a.m." No stops. Those words should have tipped me off. I left the depot around 12:45 a.m. My route took me down the usual roads until I hit Route 79, an old, winding stretch of highway that cuts through a thick patch of forest between two small towns. It's not scenic, not pretty, just blacktop and trees, but it's direct, or it was. About 30 miles in, I saw a detour sign, bright orange, freshly planted, still shining from the reflection of my headlights. Weird thing was, I drove this route just 2 nights ago. There had been no construction, no blocked roads. I even slowed down to check if there were cones or trucks. Nothing, just the sign and a new arrow pointing to a narrow dirt road leading into the woods. My GPS rerouted immediately, like it knew. I stared at it a second too long, hesitating, but time was ticking. No stops. I turned. The dirt road started wide enough for 2 cars, but within minutes it narrowed, trees creeping in on both sides like nature was reclaiming its land. My headlights could barely cut through the fog that started to rise, dense, slow-moving, like smoke from something still burning just out of sight. There were no road markings, no signs, Just twisted branches overhead and gravel crunching beneath my tires. 10 minutes in, the air started to change. It got heavy, metallic. I could taste it, like blood in my mouth. The kind of smell you get after biting your tongue. I cracked the window to clear my head, but that only made it worse. The cold that came and didn't feel like regular cold. It was wrong. That's when I saw it. A deer, standing still just off the side of the road. But its eyes, it didn't have any. Just two hollow sockets. It should have looked pitiful, maybe sick, but it didn't. It looked like it was watching me. I kept driving. Then came another, and another. Dozens, all spaced out along the road. All eyeless, all staring silently as I passed by, like a funeral procession from some nightmare dimension. I turned the radio on to distract myself, but it didn't work. Static. Then it went silent. Then it spoke. A voice crackled through the speakers. My voice. He shouldn't be here. He's not supposed to see this part. I froze. My foot went heavy on the gas. That's not possible. The radio isn't two-way. And I hadn't said a word, but I recognized it. The inflection, the way I swallow hard when I'm nervous. That was me. I don't remember the next few minutes clearly. Just trees flying past, fog thickening like cotton in my throat, and the sense, deep in my gut, that I wasn't alone anymore. Not in the car, not on that road. Finally, I saw light ahead. Yellow, warm, real, civilization. I shot out of the trees and back onto asphalt, so smooth it felt like silk. Streetlights, billboards, a gas station in the distance. And just like that, it was over. I made the delivery at 2:59 a.m. 1 minute to spare. The man who answered the door was pale, thin, eyes sunken like he hadn't slept in years. He didn't say a word, just took the package, nodded, and shut the door. I stood there for a second, shivering even though it wasn't cold. When I got back to the depot, I told my supervisor about the detour. He blinked like I'd grown a second head. Route 79? That road doesn't have detours. Straight shot all the way through. I insisted, even showed him the GPS log. But when he pulled it up, there was a gap. A 30-minute dead zone with no tracking, as if my van had vanished from the grid. I went home and pulled the dash cam footage. Same gap, just static for 30 minutes. Then, suddenly, 3 seconds of video. I wish I'd never seen it. The camera showed me, parked in the woods. The van was still. My hands were on the wheel. I was smiling, blankly, like a wax figure, or someone drugged out of their mind. And behind me, in the back seat, something moved. I still don't know what it was. Not a person, not an animal, something in between. All I could see was a hand, long, pale fingers slowly curling around the back of the seat, inching closer to the side of my head. Then the footage cut out. The van was locked when I checked it. Nothing in the back. No signs of anything. But the smell of metal, of blood, lingered for days. I stopped taking night runs after that. Sometimes, when I'm driving during the day, I'll see a detour sign on the side of the road. Brand new, bright orange. I never follow them. But one day, I might not have a choice. Story 3. It was one of those long, soul-sucking drives that turn your thoughts into static. I was somewhere deep in Texas, flatlands stretching forever. No gas stations, no towns, just a two-lane highway and a sky so black it looked like the stars had given up shining. 3 in the morning, maybe a little later. The kind of hour where reality starts to bend around the edges. I've been driving 6 hours straight, just me and the road. Windows cracked for a breeze, music low to keep my mind from slipping too far into the silence. My eyelids were heavy, lead heavy, and I knew I was dancing too close to sleep. But I had to keep going. I didn't have a choice. That's when I saw it. A car, pulled off on the shoulder. No hazards flashing. Just sitting there. Headlights dead, like a corpse waiting to be buried. I slowed down, instinct more than anything. I always slow for broken down vehicles. Guess it's a habit my dad drilled into me. You never know when it'll be you, he used to say. But this car was off. No one waved. No movement. Just this eerie stillness that felt staged. I passed it without stopping. I wish I hadn't slowed at all. I wish I'd gunned it. But hindsight's cruel like that. About 5 minutes later, my throat dry and my hands clutched tight around the wheel. I glanced up at the rearview mirror, and I froze. There was a man in the back seat. He was just sitting there, still, his head tilted slightly to the side, like he was studying me. Pale face, no expression, just blank. But his eyes, God, his eyes were open too wide, like someone had peeled back his eyelids and forgotten to let go. I screamed. I actually screamed. I slammed the brakes in the middle of the highway, tires screeching. The car jerked to a stop, throwing me forward in my seatbelt. I jumped out, heart pounding like a sledgehammer in my chest, and yanked open the back door. Empty. Totally empty. Not even an old jacket on the seat. I dropped to my knees and looked under the seats. Checked the trunk. Opened every door. Nothing. Not a damn thing. I stood there in the cold, my breath fogging up, hands shaking. You're tired, I told myself. You're sleep deprived. You imagined it. And maybe I did. Or maybe that's what he wanted me to believe. I got back in the car, took a deep breath, locked the doors, started driving again. But the unease didn't leave. It clung to me like wet clothes. About 10 minutes later, I looked again. Something told me to look. That same feeling you get when someone stares at the back of your head in a crowded room. He was back, closer now, leaning forward, head just inches from mine. That same pale face, but this time, he was smiling. Wide, too wide. His lips stretched up to his ears, and his teeth were small, yellow, perfectly spaced like baby teeth in a jar. I didn't scream this time. I couldn't. My voice died in my throat. I just kept driving, knuckles white on the wheel, eyes locked forward. I told myself not to look again. If I looked again, maybe he'd be even closer. Whispering, breathing. I drove 20 miles without blinking. At some point, lights appeared up ahead, a small gas station, one of those 24-hour ones with flickering signs and vending machines that still eat your change. I swerved into the lot like a man possessed, left the car running, and sprinted inside like the building was sanctuary. The guy behind the counter looked like he'd been half asleep when I burst in. Early 20s. Hoodie. Chewing gum with zero interest in life. I begged him, actually begged him, to come out and check my back seat. He looked at me like I was nuts, but something in my voice must have convinced him, because he followed me out, keys jangling in his hand. When we got to the car, I flung the door open. Nothing. Not a damn thing. Again, he leaned in, did a half-ass scan, then stood up straight, and that's when he said it. The thing that still wakes me up cold at 3 a.m. Why is your back seat wet? I stared at him. What? He stepped back, his face suddenly serious. It's soaked. Look, I leaned in. The back seat was damp. The fabric darkened, dripping, actually, like someone had climbed in straight out of a lake. And there was this smell, faint but sharp, like old water and rot, like something that had been left behind for too long. I reached out and touched it. The seat was freezing cold, not just wet, ice cold. The clerk didn't say anything else. He turned and walked back inside without a word. I didn't drive anymore that night. I waited until sunrise, sitting in the gas station with a paper cup of coffee and eyes that wouldn't close. Eventually, I opened the trunk again, just to check. There was nothing. Of course there was nothing, except there was a wet handprint on the inside of the lid. Small, child-sized, pressed into the metal like it had been reaching up from inside. I sold the car the next day, but sometimes when I'm alone and the night is just too quiet, I hear something breathing in the back seat. And when I look in the mirror, he's smiling again,